11-year-old Jacob Wetterling lived with his family in St. Joseph, Minnesota. But here in the nation's heartland, the unspeakable has happened. On Sunday night, a masked gunman grabbed the youngster, and no one has seen Jacob since then.
Sunday night, just outside of town, 11-year-old Jacob Wetterling was abducted by a masked man with a gun.
On October 22, 1989, in St. Joseph, Minnesota, Jacob Irwin Wetterling was abducted. He was with his brother, Trevor, and his best friend, Aaron Larson.
We were coming down this road here, and we were just talking and everything, and then this guy just came out and he had a gun, I thought it was some kid pulling a prank on us or something, but it wasn't, and then he looked at Trevor and he told Trevor to turn off his flashlight, and then he told us he had a gun and he told us to turn around and go over into this ditch and put our bikes in there and lay down. Then he came over and he asked us all our ages, and then he told Trevor to run as fast as he could into the woods or else he'd shoot. Then he looked at me and then he grabbed Jacob and he told me to run as fast as I could into the woods or he'd shoot.
In the early 1980s, there were a number of child abductions in the Painesville area, all with relative suspect descriptions. These descriptions included a low, gruff voice and the threat of a knife or gun. The age of the boys were also relatively common. Child abductions were not in police or FBI databases because the government never realized how big of an issue and how often abductions and exploitation happened. Later, the suspect was realized as Delbert Hubert, who was living in Painesville at the time. 2 years after the Painesville incidents, there was an abduction in nearby Cold Spring, about 10 miles from Painesville and 20 miles from St. Joseph, where Jacob was abducted. However, Hubert was not the only suspect. There were many more, and at one time, they had as many as 100 suspects. Nobody has been accused and jailed for the Painesville abductions, but some suspects contain links with the Wetterling abduction. Patty Wetterling has lost her son to humanity. We learned early on that what happened, was way bigger than Jacob and way bigger than our family, Wetterling said. It's about like this entire community was taken. There was an innocent stolen, and my hope is that we have been able to pull some of that back and to provide, this world where kids can grow up safe.
The motive behind kidnapping is for sexual purposes, somebody taking another human being for whatever they want, and that's wrong.
Wetterling has decided to retaliate. She still believes that certain legislation needs to be passed to protect children, such as personal relationships that start in preschool and the awareness of people who have a record. She believes in prevention, not just the justice of the abductors. She also believes that people should be able to mess up, especially at a young age. She feels that people shouldn't have to be registered as a sex offender until at least 18, hopefully the age of 25. Her efforts led to eventually founding the Jacob Wetterling Resource Center and becoming juror of the board at the National Center for Missing and Unexploited Children. When asked what she felt was her top accomplishment, this was her reply.
It's really hard for me to talk about accomplishments because we didn't do what we set out to do, which was to find Jacob. So everything we've done along the way is helpful. Hopefully it'll help the next family. But it's hard to brag about anything because we haven't found him yet.
Patty admitted she wasn't alone.
Everybody helped us. At the beginning, I was a stay-at-home mom, and we had a group of community members formed the Friends of Jacob, and then we reached out. We became sort of a national news, and some people came from California saying that if you really want to do this long term, you have to form a foundation. And I was still in shock, but my husband helped organize that to the Jacob Wetterling Foundation, and then the name changed. Now it's the Jacob Wetterling Resource Center. So it was a process of a lot of caring people in the community, and then a lot of reaching out to whoever else has done this before and how can they help. So I get the credit for a lot, but there were a lot of people doing things. My husband basically formed the foundation. It wasn't me. I was too sad and in shock.
Community members, friends of Jacob, Allison Fay, and her husband, Jerry Wetterling, all took part.
Allison was a classmate of Jacob's, and she didn't know him well, but imagine if one of your, best friends or one of your classmates was suddenly gone. So she helped. She was in charge. I think she was active with student council and stuff, so she organized balloon launches and school events, and eventually I got to know Allison over time, and then she worked for our foundation as a volunteer. Then she actually worked at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Alexandria, Virginia. And then she came back and did grad school, and we hired her back, so she's back working with us.
Patty helped establish a training program because they used people trained for bank robberies to track down children that had been abducted. The FBI had talked to people such as Dan Rassier, the owner of the property that Jacob was abducted on, who was proven innocent. Wetterling also had databases added to register child abductors. Laws such as Megan's Law and Jared's Law were established to prevent such abductions that had happened to their namesakes. She started to found Friends of Jacob, later called Jacob Wetterling Resource Center, and added administration. She also joined the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, eventually becoming juror of the board.
Law enforcement didn't have any training on how do you respond to a missing child. The people, the FBI guys who came and worked on our case, had training in bank robberies. They came from the bank robbery division to find a missing child.
Today, Wetterling's work has lowered the average number of abductions and established foundations such as Jacob Wetterling Resource Center and helped the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children continue their success. She's still searching for Jacob, but will do anything possible to help others be successful.
It's kind of like building citizens. How do you treat one another respectfully and with equality, and give people the opportunity to become all that they can be. And we don't teach that. We barely talk about it in our culture. It's more about, you can do it and you go after and you get what you need, instead of how can I help this person, or how can I treat this person more respectfully so we all win.
The Wetterling's oldest daughter, Amy, was looking as well.
She was in second grade, and she had imaginary friends, Abby and Abba, and she would talk to them. Jacob would tease her all the time. Well, are they here? Am I sitting on them? And after he was kidnapped, she sent her imaginary friends to find him. She told me that they live in his footsteps wherever he goes. I thought, how sweet. How sweet.
All I do is for the children of the world. I get no benefit except knowing the next generation will be that much safer.